We want to thank you, Bill, for coming in today and talking about your experiences during the war. I guess the first thing we'd be interested in is knowing how you came to be in the Army and when the war broke out in December of 41, what you were doing.
Okay. Back in, I'm speaking on ancient history now to you guys. But back in 1940, they come up with a draft. War was getting almost sure we were going to have one. So they had this selective service draft in 1940. Anyone from 21 to 35 had to register. And of course, I was born in 18, and in December of 1940, I'd have been 22 years old. So we signed up for the draft over at Toledo, and everybody received a number. Some of them volunteered, but I waited until they drafted me. So they drafted me in November of 1941. Now that was just a month before, not quite a month before war was declared. I was drafted at $21 a month. Now that was our pay. Now we just came out of the Depression, and $21, I think when I went in, I was making $56 a month. If I remember, I was making about $14 a week. But anyway, we went in at $21 a month. Of course, we had our food furnished, our clothing, dental, any medical, everything was furnished, so probably $21 better than $56 on the outside. So I was stationed. They shipped me from the induction center down to Spartanburg, South Carolina at Camp Croft. And on December the 8th, that was when the war broke out, I was in my basic training, just started. So they hurried it right on through. They changed all the rules and regulations because we were at war. Now, I want to back up just a little bit. When we first went into service, nobody liked soldiers. There were signs when we go into town on a pass, there'd be signs, no dogs or soldiers allowed. So you might know how we felt. We felt like we were just the scum of the earth. But anyway, then after December the 8th, people welcomed us with open arms. You couldn't hardly do enough because we were at war. Then I went through basic training down in Carolina, and from then they shipped us up to Fort Dix, New Jersey. And that was a receiving place for replacements. And I was assigned to the 34th Infantry Division. That was a division getting ready to go overseas. I went up there from basic training, got up there in the latter part of March of 1942. See, I went in the Army in 41 November. This was early 42. In 5 months and 2 days, from the time I was drafted till I was on the boat headed overseas. They shipped us overseas April the 30th, 1942. I never saw Toledo or Cumberland County after I first went in the service till I got back from overseas. We went overseas. Nobody knew where we were going. We were about 14 days on the Aquitania. That was a big British ship. We went by the way of Iceland, all up north because Germans patrolled the Atlantic. They had a lot of U-boats, that's submarines out there, trying to sink all the troop ships. And we had not only troops, we had guns and everything else on a division. See, it takes several ships to ship a division overseas. We landed in Scotland, in the harbor of Scotland, on May the 13th, 1942. Because this boat we were on was not small enough to land in Northern Ireland where we were designated to go. So they took us then by barges from Scotland back across the sea there to Londonderry, Northern Ireland. And that's where we disembarked. And then from there they shipped us by train down to the southern part of Northern Ireland. Now Southern Ireland was what they called the Free State. They were neutral. We could not go into Southern Ireland. We trained there in Northern Ireland. We lived in, if you'll look back, there's some of them around here now, almost like some of Bill's hog houses. They were billets, and they would house about 25 men. Had a little stove. And now over Northern Ireland, see, you're way up north, a lot of daylight. We'd get up, it'd be daylight. We'd go to bed, it'd be daylight. The sun never set over there in the summertime till around 10 o'clock. Then it came up about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know when it came up. I never, unless I was on guard duty. So we trained in Northern Ireland. We were infantry. That means you do a lot of walking. They give us a lot of, and made men out of us. And they learned us how to take orders. We were learned how to take care of your own. You took care of your bed. You done everything on your own because you didn't have your mother there to pick up for you. You were strictly it. And the better you kept yourself, the better your outfit was. And being in the infantry, everybody, of course, wants to be number one. Just like your basketball teams here, everybody competes. So we were always trying to outdo the other companies. Went on, and then they brought in some British commandos, like our Rangers and like our Marines, and taught us. We knew we were going to go someplace, so we took a commando training. It was done under the authority of the United States government, but we trained. We'd walk 5 miles every Saturday. That was just a must for the first few months. Then it wasn't long, it was 10 miles every Saturday. Then it wasn't long, it was a 25-mile hike every Saturday. That was just compulsory. But 25 miles, you walk about 3 miles an hour. Then the last big hike they had a 50-mile hike over there. And they done it in 36 hours. And you carried a full field pack. You didn't just walk it by yourself. You carried your rifle, you carried a full field pack. The full field pack consists of 2 blankets, extra change of clothes, your mess gear on the back, and then you have your ammunition on. Now you want to remember, over there, we're in a country, Ireland was not in war, but they were bombed, some of the Germans. Anyway, at night, there was no lights, no cars on the road like you kids have today, no cars on the road. People traveled on bicycles, everything was rationed over there, gasoline. And we were in our barracks, we were blacked out. Every time you went out the door, you had to be sure that there was no lights because you never knew when a German plane was over. And the buildings we slept in, they were camouflaged in the woods, and they were camouflaged with paint like green and brown. You see guys wearing those uniforms today. We'd turned in all of our white uniforms. We didn't have all of our white underwear was turned in, and we were issued khaki colored underwear, so we washed our clothes. We had to do our own laundry. There was no indoor plumbing. Everything was outdoor plumbing over there where we trained. And they had big horses with those, we call them honey wagons, come by, and everything was picked up and hauled away. Well, of course, this is going back several years ago. So we trained, and we ended up, they decided to pick 1 battalion, and that consists of 4 companies. 1 battalion, and 135th, evidently we must have been the ones that they trained better. Anyway, we were designated to go in to Algiers, North Africa on November the 8th. Now, we didn't know where we were going. We trained, like I say, there in the southern part of Ireland, then we moved up to north of Belfast, and we trained on big ships, trained beach landing. They have these little, you probably saw movies, they have little, little boats, I can't think of MSD. They go in and the front drops down and everybody gets off. Well, we trained on that. As they get in, they hit a little sand. When they drop you off, you're getting water up to your neck. But anyway, you make those beach landings. But this is all training. And then you go back and they haul you back out this big boat. And this boat's about 4 or 5 stories high. And they throw down the rope ladders, which about 2 stories of us under the water. These rope ladders, if the boat pulls in, you start climbing up that rope ladder and it's gone. And you don't start climbing this way because the guy up above you is going to step on your hand. You climb this way. You reach the ladder this way and go up that there. Otherwise, once in a while, he misses a step. Once in a while, the guy falls off, too. But anyway, you climb that with your rifle on your, tied around your neck. With your ammunition, you train that way every day. Then you eat on the boat and sleep on the boat. We done that. One day we didn't go out the boat. We found out the movement. We knew we were headed someplace. We didn't know where. So we went down into the Atlantic. This was in the early part of November '42, and we began to notice that we were getting other ships coming in from the States, and other ships were from England and Ireland. And first thing you know, we were a great big armada of of ships. We had a airplane carrier. Now, what I remember, we didn't have the airplanes like we got today. They didn't ship us over by airplane because they only had the old C-47s to haul supplies. They didn't have trains, and they had trains, didn't have airplanes like we got today. We went down, and first thing you know, we pulled into the Rock of Gibraltar. That's down there, and so we were Americans, so the only way they made us all go below deck because they didn't want the Germans to know. Because you have a lot of spies around everywhere, and they want them to know the Americans was on board that ship. It was a British ship, and they pulled into the Rock because England owned that, and they took on fuel, and in this boat we were on fueled the smaller boats in the bunch of ships, but I can't think what they called it. But anyway, so if you want to go on deck, you had to go to get some sailor and borrow a British uniform, which I did. I borrowed a British uniform so I could go up and say that I saw the Rock of Gibraltar, so that it was beautiful, and not too far across there, of course, was Casablanca. It's straight there going out of the Atlantic into the Mediterranean, not very far. We left the Rock of Gibraltar and got down into the Mediterranean. I'd say this was about the 6th of November. Then they called us all together and told us that we're going to make an invasion of North Africa, and we're going to hit the early morning of November the 8th, 1942. So that we had trained that we knew that we were going to go on. One was the Malcolm and one was the Bro, as the name of 2 destroyers. And we had trained off of them, and we knew that anyone asked us who we were, we always said, my boat was Malcolm, I was always Malcolm, and you knew what ship you were on. So they took us off of this big ship that we were on, it was a Sheffield, and transferred us to these 2 destroyers. And getting on those destroyers, I knew right then we were in for something, because destroyers don't have on just one deck, and they had it lined up with about 3 foot of steel, about 2 inches thick, all the way around. That was to stop machine gun bullets. So that's when they told us where we were going, and we only carried then. We did not have our full fuel pack. All we had then to carry on our back enough food for one day, and enough ammunition. You carried, when you're going in on an invasion, you take 2 bandoliers of ammunition, and that clips of 50s M1 rifles. You have 2 bandoliers around your neck. You have 4 or 5 hand grenades tied to you, and plus your ammunition. You ain't got time to run out of ammunition and holler for somebody to come to you, because if nobody can come to you. And you watch your ammunition. You don't shoot every time you hear something move. Anyway, we were transferred then to those 2 destroyers. 400. There was 800 of us trained in this. They put 400 on each ship. One was the Malcolm and one was the Bro. And they told us that we would be going in early morning November the 8th, and 9 chances out of 10 that the French people would be so happy to see us, they'd greet us with oranges. Well, they did. They greeted us with oranges, but they were shot out of a shore battery. We got about 6-inch shore battery. But before I get into that, I was on this side of the boat. Or if I remember right, on this side. We were going east. They decided about 4 o'clock to take my platoon that I was in, I was just a private, and put us over on this side, and brought another bunch and put over here. Why? That's the Army. They changed it a little bit. Thank God they did, because that whole side, that's where the shells, when they did come in, they just killed every man on that side of the boat, see? So I had just moved over to that side. So they shot our boat up, and it sank. 400 men got in that tried to do what 800 of us was trained to do. Our 400, we had to throw everything we had off of the boat. It was sinking. And they pulled us out of gun range and took us out into the Mediterranean, where I don't know, 10 miles or so. Then they transferred us over to another boat. The boat didn't sink right there. It takes a boat a long time to sink. But it was taking water, and I don't know how many of the officers were killed or anything like that, but it was scared too bad. You can hear men, grown men now. You heard their teeth chattering. You heard their knees knocking on that steel. We were all scared that bad. I tell everybody I got scared November the 8th, 1942, and I've been scared ever since. But anyway, they took us off of this boat. The sea was very rough. Well, the water don't, anytime you're on a sea, because of the invasion, they can't pick the day when the water's going to be calm. It had to be rough that day. And these boats, sinking boat I was on, they tried to tie them together. We don't have all the facilities out there during war to tie boats together. They tried to tie us together. as the two boats come up like this, we were to jump from this boat to this boat. Now, 3 or 4 fellows, I just know a turtle in our company didn't make it. And they ain't got time, hey, stop, we're going to pick this guy up. He forgot that fellow, he's gone. They sent home a notice to his parents and killed in action. But I remember going across that boat, I'll never forget it. I still think you can see fingerprints of mine on that boat if you can find it, because I was pulling, and I didn't want to go down, because I timed myself so that I could go when the boats come together like that. You time yourself. Anyway, most of our guys, so we had nothing. We couldn't go in until they got us more supply, unless you protect a club. But anyway, we didn't get in then. That was on the morning of November the 8th. The other 400 who did land, they were captured by the Germans and the French and the enemy. But they were turned loose on the 10th. They took them and captured them, put them in a big warehouse, guarded them, and ones that was wounded were taken to the hospital there in Africa. And this other 400 was brought in then on the 9th. And there we were. We landed without the French gave up. If you look through your history book, you'll know I think his name was Darlene, was the commander. And one of our generals, General Mark Clark, had landed way back there. You'll read your history book, landed before we made this landing, knowing to get this all set up before we could land. But they landed all up and down the coast. They started back at Casablanca and around, I forget how far, and Oran, all that. They were different divisions landing. And our rest of our division landed north someplace from us. But anyway, we got in on the late evening of the 9th, and they escorted us to this building where these guys had been prisoners. So we got our same old companies and everybody back. And the guy said, well, we figured you guys all drowned, because last we seen the boat was on fire, it was sinking, we figured you drowned it, and we'd heard they didn't have communication like they got today. They didn't have two-way radios. They didn't have all the things that like we've got today, modern stuff. But so we heard through our radio on the boat that was on that they were all captured, so we figured they're probably on their way to Germany or someplace and for the war camp, but they were still there in Africa. So anyway, then we were put in a schoolhouse, like this school here. No beds, nothing. We had nothing. We just slept on the floor. And then we had supplies. They got us supplies, and they got us guns, and they got everything back. First thing you know, we were outfitted and ready to go again. But we stayed there in Algiers, North Africa, for about 40 days, and we guarded the shore, the docks down there while they unloaded the supplies, while the rest of the division went on, so we could get our divisions together. Then we left, and during that time, we had 60 air raids. Now, they had some air raid shells there. If you never went through an air raid, it's terrible, the noise, and of course, it was down the siren. Now, Algiers was a big city, was a large city. Now, you probably studied that in history. Algiers after it was, but anyway, we were there about 40 days, and then they started us up to the front, and they took us by truck, hauled us up to the front, and then they took us off of the trucks about 2 days out, I guess, where you're from, and then because the trucks couldn't go any further. Then they traveled a day, and then went along, and they started to keep us hid someplace during the day, and the trucks would go by night for the last couple of days, and then we had to walk the rest of the day, got up there. But anyway, we were sent there. Rommel was a great German general and has been down in Libya, down in the desert, was fighting the British, and fighting the French, and the Italians was on his side at that time. Anyway, we had Germans and Italians to fight, and then they gave up and fell on our side. But anyway, we were sent in there to make a little dent to keep him from, they was driving him out, to slow, to speed him up, make him, try to get him to give up, but he didn't. But he fought pretty hard there, holding all this area that he get his troops out of Tunis and across into Italy, see. So, but we were sent in like shock troops. We'd go in and they'd haul us up someplace, the basement and unload, and we'd fight him a day or two, and I'd pull off so the guys down below could drive a little farther, drive a wedge farther up. We were at Kasserine Pass and Fayette Pass with a couple of real bad battles there in Africa, and I was in 135, 135th Infantry Division, and there's a 133 and the 164. It takes three infantry regiments to fill a division. Well, the 164th got annihilated there at Casuarine Pass. They captured and killed most every man in that regiment. The ones that didn't run, they got out of there. But and we were over the other side of Fayette Pass at that time. And then if you look at your history, hill 609 was in there. There's a hill that was, every number of hills had a number, and we tried to take that. It took us, a week to move maybe as far as the end of your football field over there. You just, it was just hand to hand and things like that, fighting, very fierce fighting. And I was always fortunate. I never was wounded. So many of our guys were killed and wounded, and we had to replace us come over. I didn't get wounded first till I got up into Italy. But all through that, I was very fortunate. So we got through Africa. Finally got over with in May of 1943. This was May now, 1943. And then they shipped us back by train. Now they had trains over. They shipped us back from Tunis, North Africa to Oran, where we would get more replacements and more training. Now that I know there's a lady here in this class, but have you ever thought how dirty and what you'd look like if you just put on a boxcar, no toilet facility, only done some rations in there, enough to last us for a 1,000-mile trip, enough rations to eat, cans of water, and you went to the toilet by going with the door open on the train, take your clothes off, and if you had to have your VN, and one guy would set facing into this, say this is the door, and there'd be two guys hold your hands, see if you can fall it out. Now you'll think about, we were like animals. Now it's hard to believe. I have told that story in a lot of places, and they said, oh, that could happen. I said, where are you going to go? You can't knock a hole in the floor, and we're all human, and we were all sick with dysentery. You don't have clean food. Everybody always had diarrhea. But anyway, that's how we traveled. But the train was going to be running 15, 20 mile an hour because every time you crossed the bridge, they had to check it, see if the Germans hadn't mined it or some fifth columnists over there. See, so they checked every bridge we crossed. Every tunnel we went through had to be inspected. So when the train did stop, you could use the ditches. Now if you stop and think, I know a lot of people will wonder, well, how in the world you were put out there in the front line? Every man carries a little shovel or a pick because you want to dig a hole real fast. You got to have that, and you borrow from one another. And that's the same way the time you had to go to the bathroom. There's no bathroom there. You did dig a hole and you buried it because you did. And the Germans were they done the same thing. It was awful being running and have to dive in a hole. You dive in something like that. It's bad enough. It's like it was. See. But anyway, now that's just some of the things I know. I hated to tell that story, but that's how Inkerman people live. Now you take the guys in the quartermasters, the guys in all that, they had good beds to sleep in. Not good, but they had their own bed. We never had a bed. I never laid down in a bed, probably, I don't know, 6 months at a time. We'd never come off the front line. At least a month or two, you'd be up there fighting before you ever took your shoes and socks off. You slept standing up, or you slept in a hole. Normally you dug a hole, and say two fellows would try to sleep in the same hole together. One would stay awake and one would sleep. If the other guy fell asleep, you had a good chance both of you getting your throats cut the next morning, because there's always somebody prowling around, and that's how you protected yourself. You lived so close with these fellows you were with that you were just like family. You guarded him, he guarded you. You tried to protect one another. You did everything like a team basis. Anyway, we shipped back to Oran, and then we got some passes to go into town, but we had to get all new clothes and clean clothes. And you know, when you get cleaned up, and you're living out in a pup tent, two guys still pup tent, and they take you by big old truck, GI truck into town. You're covered with dust. You're already dirty before you get there, and you go into town and here's these Air Force guys with caps on and their pants are pressed, their shirts have got 3 presses in them, you know, and all these guys. And they look at you guys, you know, the first thing you know, somebody, especially if you get into a bar, shouldn't get into that. The soldiers do like to go out and have a good time. There'd be some of the office fighters here, they'd make fun of you. See, they'd make fun of us guys. Well, we've had enough karate and enough that training wasn't long. Some guys, they would beat an awful little guy, be beating up that big guy, we'd probably take over the place. I just throw that in because, you know, we were, no way we could go in pressed. We'd wash our own clothes out and then we'd lay on them to press them. That's how we pressed our pants. We wanted to clean them up. See, then if we had to look halfway distant, we snap on it. Anyway, we trained more, got more replacements, and we knew that we were getting ready for something else. So it wasn't long. This was in this was in May, and we got back into Oran, I'd say, sometime in June. And they had made me at that time. I got made corporal. I was second in command of the squad. Then and while I was there in this camp from Oran, I had the honor of 2 fellows calling on me, and one of them was Bill Walter, your coach, your retired coach, and Harold Woods, who was down here south of Griff. They were drafted too, but they were in different outfits. Harold was a lieutenant, and Bill was a corporal or sergeant one. They knew I'd come back in there someplace, so they stopped and looked me up. And so we had a nice visit. You do run into someone like that once in a while at home. And they were the first 2 guys I think I had seen. No, I'll take it back. I saw 2 other guys. A little town, getting a little bit ahead of my story. Before I left Tunis, there was a little town there of Bizerta. The Germans had shelled it so bad, and then we had shelled it so bad, there was only 1 building left in the town. And then Red Cross come in there. This is after the African campaign was over, and come in there and they had a red stripe. And they met everybody signed from Illinois and Wisconsin and all that. So I had made a trip down to this town looking it over. We were stationed someplace there along the coast. And I signed my name. So Rollo Evans, who's a farmer north of town, and Don Maxwell, who used to run the 10-cent store, he's an electrician, he's retired now. They were in a hospital outfit just outside of Tunis. See, they have hospitals in tents, and that's where they send the guys that first get wounded. They can't send them to. But anyway, they worked there as orderlies or something, and they happened to go in and they'd signed that, going through that book, looking up Illinois. They seen my name, and one of my sergeants from my outfit was there, and they said, "Well, there is Bill Mock," which he knew me as John. I dropped the Bill when I was in service, that nickname. So he said, "Well, you know Mock?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, he's in my outfit." So he come back and told me. So the next day or 2, I hitchhiked a ride and got a Jeep. It was about 5 miles out there. I visited Rollo Evans and Don Maxwell. That was the first 2 guys I'd seen home. And then when I got up to Oran with Bill Walter and Harold Woods. We trained there in Oran, and then we were put on boats, and we missed Sicily. Thank the good Lord we didn't have to go to Sicily. We headed for Italy. And our destination was Naples. But the 36th Division got in trouble at Salerno. 36th, I forgot who else was there. Texas, their first fire they got under. And they got in trouble, and so we had to back up and go to Salerno, and we were what we always called D+2. I think they'd hit 2 days, and they were just about driven back out to the ocean. And they landed us, and then we went right into combat, into fighting right there in Salerno. That was in September, I've forgotten the date, September 1943. So then we fought there, and like I say, all through Italy, and Italy is a country with a lot of mountains. A lot of mountains and a lot of rivers, a lot of streams. And the Germans, as they retreat, they blow every bridge. Just like if you want to go to Toledo, all the bridges between here and Toledo would be blowing out, and the infantry would have to go across first, so they could protect the engineers while they build a bridge to get supplies across. So they talk about the engineer, well, I was the engineer building the bridge across the river back across. You'll remember some poor infantryman without their head in it. I've crossed the water, waded across those rivers, and water hit me up to here, and I cannot swim. Everybody tell me when I couldn't swim, because they'd throw you in somebody. That's the only time I ever refused. One time there north in Italy, it come my time from, I was a sergeant that time. I was made sergeant for a while in Italy. It was my time to go lead my squad in the river first. And I told this lieutenant, I said, Lieutenant, this is one time I gotta say I ain't stepping off in no river. I know how deep it is because I can't swim. So then we got another sergeant take his squad in. And what you do, you cross these rivers, it's so swift, a lot of them, that normally they'll station two guys that are good swimmers, able to take care of themselves, go out so far and stand, and another one over so far and stand, and help this bunch of guys come through, and you carry your rifle up over your head so you can't get that rifle wet. Your ammunition might get wet, but you have to carry that. I've crossed it when it was still cold. I never crossed it below zero, not like that, but I crossed it when it was so cold, you could not build a fire and dry yourself out. Your heat from your body dries your clothes, and it may take you 2 days to get dried out after crossing. But they had us in such good physical condition, I don't think anyone ever took a cold. I might sneeze once or twice, but you walk across the river today and not dry out for a couple of days, you probably have to know your feet. But and there's no place to go to get dry, you just dried yourself out. Because you build a fire, they're going to shell you. Anyway, we went through like that, and I'm going to get into about Thanksgiving time. All this is infantry fighting. Thanksgiving time come, it was kind of a slow down on both sides, and bad weather. So our cooks, who were very good, they always stayed behind the line about 4 or 5 miles. They decided they'd cook us up something. You eat cold sea ration day in and day out, your stomach shrinks, and just say, I'm going to have pork and beans for breakfast. That's an awful. You have meat, and you have 3 choices. You got meat and beans, meat and vegetable stew, and hash. Now that's the 3 cans that you carried in sea ration. Then you had 3 cans of dry, which was little Ritz crackers. Now they call them Ritz, but you had little crackers, and you had some hard candy, and then you had a little either cocoa or coffee. Well, I learned for a long time not waste my water on making cold coffee out there. I done it without my coffee. And this food, they try to furnish you food so you every day, but the food from the supplies from the kitchen would come in, say, or from here up to the, let's say it's your stop and go store. Say you're here fighting, then you got to send somebody up that way to carry the food back, and you carry food back to the next day for the guy. And also, that's where you pick up your extra ammunition stuff. So your stuff's not delivered out to you. And in Italy, they used mules. Now, it's hard to believe that it was back in the mule day. The mules was used in World War I. But in order to get supplies up in these mountains, you couldn't bring them up in trucks. The boys couldn't carry them, so they had mule skinners. Quartermaster got a bunch of mules. You tie a bunch of supplies on these mules, and they put them in. You probably saw movies of that. And they laid them mules up, and every once in a while they'd have a mule over too much weight on him, and he'd get over balance and go over backwards, and that'd be the end of your supply of the mule, and you'd go back and get another one. But anyway, they did bring our supplies up there. But what I can really tell you about your Thanksgiving, you get so your stomach shrank because you get up this morning and say, he and I decided we're both hungry, so we just split a can of rations. He can't eat a whole can, I can't eat a whole can, so we split a can. And then about 10 o'clock, you could eat whatever you wanted to because you had it on your own back, but you did have to bury that can because that can reflected in the skies, and the airplanes would know that there's soldiers in that area. So you had to either carry that empty can with you. It had those little twist things like you get on sardine cans now. They didn't have that back then. That was open. Otherwise, they had no open. I carried a spoon. I threw away all my other eating utensils, carried a spoon. The way I wash it, you just take it down and dip it in the dirt, and take your thumb and clean the dirt off. It's just as sanitary as if you'd washed it in soap and water. Put it back in to eat the next meal. But anyway, I was talking about this Thanksgiving Day. Our cook decided to bring us some hot food. We'd probably been out there a month without any hot food. So we had to walk, say, as far as from here to, quite a way about the river. And they'd send so many at a time. You get orders, you couldn't all go back, but that's the case. So when I went back, me and a fellow, we slept in this hole. You accumulate a little when you dig a hole. You just always, once in a while you might get a letter from home get to you. But you do accumulate, you're there for very long. But anyway, when he and I got back, we went this hole. This two guys stayed, these two guys could go, and these two guys could stay, and so on. But anyway, when I got back, there'd been a doggone mortar shell been in my hole. So I thank God I went at the right hour to go get my Thanksgiving dinner. I was very, very fortunate. I always thought the good Lord was with me. Ever seemed like every time that I would always be fortunate enough to be in that place at that time. So anyway, we got food once in a while like that. Then we got into trying to take the town of a leaf. And you might have heard this story of it. But anyway, we went through the German line. And we were being shot at from behind the same way as in front. So Lieutenant told me, he said, Sergeant, I want you to take your men and go back down and clean that house out. Say there were Germans in a building over there. So you run, you don't just walk out, you have to go around this long way so you kind of keep under cover. So I went down there. Most of the houses in Italy have a stone fence around them. They have their houses, they have their animals under their house, and they keep their animals and everything in one building out in the country. So I went down there, and I had a kid from Wisconsin who speak German, so we got down there, we knew they were in there because they'd been shooting at us. So he kept hollering at them, and finally they wouldn't come out. So I knew I seen that hole in the wall there, and I told him, I said, I'm going to take a grenade. You guys cover me, and I'm going through there, and I'm going to go to the door and throw that grenade in. So I did. I run like Jesse Owens. I was built by, I only weigh about 15 pounds more than I did when I was fighting. I weighed about 165 pounds in the front line. I weighed about 180 today. So I've never gained much weight, except a lot of that muscle's gone to fat now. But anyway, I run through that grenade in, and so they came out. And they came out and gave themselves up. And that's the only time I ever took anything in my life. The guys standing there with their hands up, and we're searching them, and I had broken my watch. And this guy had a nice watch. And I've always hated it, because 9 chances out of 10 his brother gave that to him. He was a German. Or his girlfriend had given it to him, but I wanted that watch, so I needed it worse than he did, so I took his watch off of him. And he was protesting, I know, but I tell him, in English, that I didn't give the DA of what he said. He'd been shooting at me all morning, so I took his watch, and I got it at home, and I've always felt bad that I'd done that. But I never took anything in my life. I ever did. That's the only thing that's kind of bore on my life ever since that I took that watch. Because chances are that was a souvenir, and maybe he was killed after that. I don't know. But anyway, I did take his watch. But we got him, and then what do you do with a bunch of Germans after them? You can't just take them with you. So you had to. We'd have a bunch of people that come up and pick up the prisoners. See, and so we had turned them over to the rear of our battalion, and then turned. And there's always so many rumors that a lot of guys shot the prisoners. See, I don't know. I never done that. Whenever you take his gun off of him, he's at your mercy. Just like, and they tell you in their broken English that we're fighting because we were drafted like you guys are. So nobody really wants to fight. It's the higher up. I've always said, if the President of the United States, clear down to every one of them, would just come and bid with me 15 minutes. I'm just going to say 15 minutes. On the front line, 15 minutes, there'd never be another war. I don't think anyone would go through it. But see, it takes 10 soldiers to keep one infantryman on the front line. They can't all be in the infantry, or we'd be in an awful trouble trying to get supplies up there. You have to have people for supplies, people in the medics, people drive trucks. It's every kind of a job in the world, but I happen to be unfortunate and got drafted, but in the infantry. Now, I wouldn't take nothing from what I see, but I wouldn't want to do it again for they couldn't pay me to go through what I went through. Anyway, this now is getting about, like I said, trying to take this town. Now, I want you to visualize like the Toledo Square. And there's no building in the center, no courthouse, but they always, every town had a square. They either have some kind of a monument out there, or there's a fountain or something. But see, all these people have gone. The civilians there have gone. Because they will stay there and be shelled. Our shells is coming in, and their shells is coming in, and there's no place for the civilians, so they have to leave. Once in a while, there'll be somebody held up in a basement, you'll find it. But anyway, we're going in. The Germans, we took this, I always call it like, I don't know where you're familiar with Toledo or not, where the library is. I always think of that alley down through that library. We'd come in around the back of the library, and 4 of our fellows would come in another place. the Germans over here, and they had a machine gun trained down that alley. And every time we would try to go across this, they'd try to kill us. And I'll never forget one guy got hit right in the muscle of his leg here and his thigh. And he got shot in the thigh, and he rolled. Of course, we drug him out of the thing, they killed him, but then that was the end of his fight. He tore his leg all up. I've seen him, he's in Wisconsin. I've seen him on the reunion. I don't think he ever come back to front line after that. But anyway, we take turns to go across. You take a spurt, you learn to watch, to listen. I mean, the machine guns. You can listen, and you can tell our machine gun sounds from their machine gun sounds. You learn the airplane sounds, those our planes or the enemy plane. Your ears play a big part in your eyes. If you haven't got good eyes and good ears, you're no business in heaven, because somebody will pick you off. But anyway, we went through to take this, and finally got across, got into this part of this town, and then we worked our way up. And I know I had a bunch of men assigned, just like I'm going to take the street coming down from the bank. That belonged to the German. We had the east side of town, and we done a lot of hand-to-hand fighting that day, taking building on building. Well, in the night, we had a sergeant out of Omaha, Nebraska, who was always, I don't know, he got over on the wrong side, looking around. And one of the kids in my squad spotted through the silhouette of the moon shining and told me, he said, Sergeant, I see a German over there. And so we watched, and sure enough, I spotted him too, so we cut down on him. It was one of our own men. We hit the window casing right side of him because he dropped down. I didn't find out who that we were shooting at one of our own guys for, well, I don't know, a week. We were talking, somebody told about we took that town. See, it's house from room to room. And he was talking about some darn foolish shooting him. I said, it was me. I said, don't you ever, I don't care who you are. You get over to no man's territory. I can't tell after dark where you're German or American, see. But I wasn't good enough shot. I didn't get in. And I always thought I was a pretty good shot. I could pick off, I never enjoyed saying that I killed somebody. I always thought maybe somebody else shot him at the same time I did. So I never had that on my conscience as maybe. But anyway, because it's no honor to say that you have killed. That's just, so anyway, we finally got all through then the holidays and on through Italy. And a lot of our Christmas packages, I'll back up just a little bit. Everybody gets Christmas packages from home. But our Christmas packages, when I was in Africa the first Christmas, but they don't have communications. It took my letters sometimes 30 days to get home. We went into North Africa in November. Well, Christmas packages are supposed to be mailed early. Everybody mailed our packages to Northern Ireland. And then they had to be transferred back down to Africa. And our Christmas package just caught up with us in March of 1943. That's when we got our Christmas package, the first Christmas. The second Christmas, I don't remember when but they was always late. Now people think well of it. I mean, they like you because you're over there and everybody sends you gifts. I had an uncle that sent me the most beautiful shoe shining kit there was, because the soldiers have to keep your shoes shined, but not in combat. I got that, see, when I was over there fighting, I was in mud about that deep. You get to open up your package, well, a lot of times you write back and thank him because he meant well. He thought I was over someplace shining your shoes. And a lot of times you get boxes with your Christmas presents, but no present. They've been run over by a truck, or somebody's emptied them, or stole them. There's always stuff like that. All you do is write back and thank them for the nice package. You didn't know where it was food in it or what it was, see. But anyway, that's how we got by with our Christmases. So then we go on, I'll move on up then to, you have probably read in your history books about the Abbey. At Monte Cassino there at Cassino, Italy. Now this was in 44. We went through now, we're into 44. And at Cassino, they're supposed to be, that's where all the monks trained and the priests. It's quite a religious place, and they tried to hold it neutral. We were not supposed to bomb it. We were not supposed to shell it or anything, but the Germans was using that as a lookout, and they could look right down our throat. So anyway, now this one, I was wounded on the 3rd day of February. This was in early February. We were trying to take it. We had maybe moved, like I told you a while ago, we didn't move probably very far. Just go out and look around. We snow and winter. Back in that time, up in the hills that way, you couldn't dig in. You make you a hole out of rocks. And sometimes you get 4 or 5 guys in a hole at the same time, so you got to keep warm. The heat from 5 bodies is a lot better than 2. You'd have 3 laying on the bottom and 2 on top between, and you change because it gets hard holding somebody up. But that's how you keep warm. You don't have any blankets out there on the front line. But anyway, we was trying to take this abbey, and they finally, after I'll tell you what I did, they finally flattened us. But anyway, the Germans, we could see them. They were coming up toward us, and we were on this hillside. I knew, so we held our fire for quite a while. So they got pretty close, and then we opened up. And when they did, then they opened up with artillery and mortars. But I don't know how many fellows was, I seen one of our guys peek up out of the hole, and the guy hit him right there, and that was the end of him. Of course, you can't go and say, let's stop the war, I want to get him. You have to lay him, and you have to lay there probably 3 or 4 days, so we picked him up. But another sergeant and I and another kid, we all got hit with the same shell. Now, I got hit with an artillery trap. Now, an artillery shell hits it's bad enough to get out here in the yard. But when it hits into the mountains, there's a lot of rock and stuff. And I had a piece of shrapnel. I don't know, I had gloves, but no insulated gloves, nothing like that thing. I got a piece of shrapnel in my finger there. It was about the size of an 8-penny nail. It come down, and I thought, well, I've lost my whole hand. Where it fell through the gloves, and I was sticking out and couldn't pull it out. I went down in there, and I have never had any trouble with that hand. But anyway, went down in there, and then I was cut across the leg, go through some flying shrapnel. Just left didn't have to be sewed up, but they had to take me back then. You have your own medical stuff besides me. You have old skills and things like that. But anyway, then I helped carry, so you can't have, you put 2 rifles down like this, and you put a wounded man on that. That's the stretcher. You carry 4 guys, carry him down off the mountain. You can get him down to where the medics are. Now you have 1 medic with you all the time. We had 1 or 2 medics killed. They wear a red band, you must put it in a cross, you know, red, you see, cross, they don't carry a rifle, they just carry a lot of medics. But they can't take care of, 1 guy trying to take care of 50, 60, 100 people out there. It's pretty hard to do, especially when you're being shot at. Now, you can't tell when the guy's running or whatever, German with a medic band around his arm or not. But anyway, that's how we're taking care of them out there. So you carry the guy down, and I was wounded slightly, see, I could carry him this side. So we get the guys that real bad, and you carry them down that way. Now, Sergeant Vigor got shrapnel in under his knees, and all he didn't want to hold inside of him was just full of shrapnel. He was sergeant of the squad, and I helped carry him then. And then Bimbo Van Hale, we always called him, he got a rifle shot, hit a rock, and it ricocheted and come through and caught him right through the muscle of his heart. So he went out on this other side. And then I've seen a guy get shot, got 4 holes in him with 1 bullet. Now that's hard to believe that 1 bullet can make 4 holes in that body. It went through, right here on his cheek, and right out through that side of his rectum, through that, made 2 holes in that cheek, and then it went through the other cheek and out on this side. He had 4 holes in his body for 1 shell, 1 rifle shell. So you can see that you can get hit a lot of different ways, see? And you may get shot at a wall or something right behind you, just shatter, but he just missed you like that, see? But anyway, I was wounded, and maybe went by, carried us back, got us on a Jeep, and then they put us on this Jeep, and they took the Jeep, and they hauled us, and the ones that could walk was out walking. And we had to walk back till we get to the ambulance, which was in a, like a, we call them around here sloughs, they call them over there wires. And then the guy with the ambulance would load us as many as he could get in, and the Jeep, and they haul us back to his hospital. Now then, it was after dark, we couldn't move, get them off there after dark. Then the guy taking care of the Jeep, the fella has to walk in front of him with a white handkerchief. Pick the road for the Jeep driver to follow this guy with a white handkerchief. And even I wanted to light a cigarette. They just raised the wheel back of the line in there miles too. I said, well, I wasn't afraid to smoke, but I want to smoke. You're nervous. I smoked back in those days. Now sometimes you smoke 2 or 3 packs of cigarettes a day. You're nervous, and they were free. Infantrymen got their cigarettes free. and also got your mail first. You could write letters where you had free email, because you couldn't carry stamps with you. You couldn't even carry nothing like that, but you did carry enough emails. You could write your mom. I used to write my mother. I've got a box of it at home. I just say, that way if I thought if anything happened to me, she'd know about what may have happened. I just write, dear Mom, I'm fine, hope everybody's the same, and that's all it sent. That way she could pinpoint me all the time about know that I was all right. See, I've done that practically every day. Sometimes during the day I get time, I'll write, but I might not get the mail it. I don't think there's a mailman come out here, might not mail that for 2 weeks, 3. You carry them in your little stuff on your back. That way they kind of know you was all right. So anyway, I went back to the hospital and I was there. Excuse me, how long you want me to go, Bill?
Just keep going.
Okay. I was in the hospital. I was gone off the front line, I think, 14 days. And I always figured that 14 days was worth $1 million to me, because I got back front line, they hadn't moved. It's still in the same hole, but there's a lot of fellas that had been killed and wounded. Captured. You probably have read his article. I think it's probably in the library in Toledo. Now there is a Life magazine in Toledo that I wish you. It's back in a 1942 or 3 edition of Harold Massey, Dr. Massey's brother, who was a pilot and flew out of the South Pacific, and he was shot down in some of the islands over there. It's quite a life history of him, and he was tortured and killed by the Japanese. He was taken prisoner. But his men, some of them got out. So if you ever want to read that, Bill, it's in the Life magazine in the library. They can tell you. It's in a little American Legion book we got, just a short story about it. I thought I'd throw that in if you want to read that. So I went over, like I say, see Bill, or Jim Cherry, because he'd been captured. So there in Ainsdale, then one night, they had the wild idea that they wanted a German prisoner of war. They wanted to go out and capture a German. So they picked out the second platoon. At that time, I was platoon sergeant. I had 3 up and 2 down. I made platoon sergeant. So the lieutenant, each company, each platoon has a lieutenant. And I'll speak a little bit about that. We have a lot of lieutenants, and a lot of them are killed and wounded, and they come fresh out of Fort Benning, Georgia. When they come to the front line, the old man, who's an old seasoned veteran, who's either a first lieutenant or captain or company commander, he will tell this lieutenant, now you are a lieutenant, but you're not in charge of that platoon until you have went through 2 or 3 battles. You'll take your orders from that sergeant. And it's they don't like that. But they know that you've been through it, and they go along. You respect him and all that, but he can't make a decision unless you okay it. But anyway, they got this lieutenant. Now this lieutenant had come up through the rank. He'd been first sergeant on an L-time. And I knew he was a fine fellow. And I liked it. Anyway, he and I said we split the platoon up. He was taking half of it, and I was taking the other half. So he was taking this half, and then that time we had telephone systems with us, but you had that.
Name and how old you are?
My name is John Mock. Everybody calls me Bill. It's a nickname. I'm 83 years old.
Okay. Where were you when Pearl Harbor was attacked?
I was in Camp Cross, South Carolina, taking basic training when that happened. I was already been drafted in the Army in November that year.
What do you remember most about the event?
Remember more about Pearl Harbor?
What do you remember most about the event?
Well, when that came out, well, they froze all passes, and they gave us extra training and we had to put on extra security. We didn't know what was going to happen next when that happened. And then after it slowed down everything, then we trained and more, and then I was left Camp Cross, South Carolina then in March, and went up to Fort Dix, New Jersey. Now this was back in 43 then. Pearl Harbor was in 42, no 41. It's in 41, and I was drafted. 41 and 42 then. I was taking my basic training, like I say, and then we shipped up to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and then I shipped overseas for the 34th Infantry Division, and that had been about 4 4 or 5 months after Pearl Harbor. I went overseas.
Did you or anyone you knew participate in the war?
Yes, I did. I made the invasion of North Africa November the 8th, 1942, and fought all the way through North Africa, and then we fought in Italy. I was wounded in Italy at Casino, but it was in 44. I'd been overseas over 2 years when I got wounded.
What was the hardest thing about the ration?
Rations? Well, I know they had rationing back home, yes, and I guess it was old gas and sugar and stuff, food and stuff like that. Now, where we were at, we didn't know any rationing because we didn't have anything. Didn't want it, didn't have anything to get. We had to, it was in foreign country, and they furnished our food, the Army did, and we had no gas. We didn't have any automobiles. We walked all the time. Now, we did have Army trucks that hauled us different places, but so gas rationing didn't bother me any at that time because I was overseas walking around anyway.
Did any female family members work outside the home?
At my home now,
No,
No.
man.
No. Then.
Speak up a little bit, Bill.
Did any female family members work outside the home?
oh, back in the war, well, yeah, I had no brothers. I had sisters. I had one sister that worked up in around Decatur in one of those. I don't know what it was. I mean, I never did see her, but she did work for the United States government up there at Decatur. I've heard her talk about it, but not enough for me to tell you what she done.
What did you miss most during the war?
What did I miss most?
Types of food and stuff.
Well, missed most of being home with my family, see. When I was drafted in November 1941, I never saw any of my family or Toledo again until the June of 1944. That was almost 3 years away. It would have been in November, it had been gone 3 years before I ever come back to Cumberland County. So I missed mostly seeing my sister grow up and missed my family, missed my parents.
Did you or any of your family members buy war bonds, save tinfoil?
I think they did. I'm not going to say. I know they did. Yes, they bought war bonds. In fact, since I got into the bank, I had a lady that had war bonds. This is just another story to tell you. I had a lady up here between here and Mattoon. She passed away, and she had war bonds stored in her basement on the ledger. And when they was tearing the house down, they found them. And those bonds had all been called. The government had called them in. This has not been over 20 years ago. And they brought them down to me to look at them. And I called the controller's office, and they said yes, they will get their money. But so I Xeroxed them off so we'd have a copy of them and mail them out to someplace in Baltimore. And they sent the family the money for those bonds, which everybody, even the Charleston Bank, had told them, said those are no good. Well, I knew that they were, and I called out to the controller's office in Washington, D.C. and found out, and they said yes, those are, it wasn't too many. She had, $6,000 or $7,000 in bonds and inners. And that's just a story I'm putting in way back after the war.
That's fine. What lessons did you learn from the war?
I learned how to take care of myself, how to keep things clean, how to fix my own food, and just things like that. I learned a lot. Learned to take orders and learn to give orders. That was the best thing. It learned you that there was a boss and you respected him. If he told you to jump, you'd ask him how high.
How have your experiences during the war influenced your present way of life?
Say that again, I can't hear you.
How have your experiences during the war influenced your present way of life?
Well, I tell you what, being in the service helped me where I got to through my life. Like I say, I was decorated, got the Silver Star in Africa on March the 6th, 1943. And I got the Purple Heart and then I got the Bronze Star Medal. My mother campaigned for me and I didn't know her. She put that always in the paper. Now, when you get something overseas, back then it'd take 90 days to 6 months before everybody got the word. But anyway, she put that in the paper. And when I decided to run for public office in 1950, why, I got out on the campaign trail and somebody tell me, well, you're awful young to be running for sheriff. Wait a minute, they'd say, are you the guy I read about was in the service? I'd say, I was in the service. I didn't know you read about me. And I finally checked with my mother and checked with people, and they said she put things like that in the paper, and it helped me, yes, it helped me get elected in 50, and I was elected 4 different times. Back then I couldn't succeed myself. I was sheriff 4 years, county treasurer 4 years, sheriff again 4 years, county treasurer again 4 years, then I went to work at the bank. So I always thought my Army experience helped me to get what I have accomplished and done up to today.
Do you remember where you were when you learned the President Roosevelt had died?
Yes, I was, he died in 1945. I was stationed then in Daytona Beach, Florida at Welch Convalescent Hospital. I was a sergeant major. I came back from overseas, and how they picked me out of all them thousands or maybe millions, anyway, I was a tech sergeant, platoon sergeant when I came back, and they needed one, and I ran an office then for 14 months in Welch Convalescent Hospital in Daytona, and so he was killed there, or during my time when I was there. And I had been to the little White House in Warm Springs, Georgia, and they have asked me the same question. You in there, go through that, and they got people there at the door, where were you at when that time? Of course, I've told that down there. Go ahead.
What do you remember most about him?
About President? Well, I think he was an exceptionally good president. He started Social Security, having us take money out of our payroll, of our account, and they'd match it, send it in, and that's the reason we can draw Social Security today. Also, he started the CCC camp for boys that was out of work, didn't have a job, couldn't find one, and they worked for the state and the government. And he started WPA. That's work program that people was out of work, they worked, but he made them work, and then the government or the state paid them. Now, they wasn't getting any free SSI, or whatever they call it now, and food stamps. He made them work for it, and I think that's what we need today. I want to see people, I don't want to see nobody go hungry, but I'd like to see them work for it, do something. And I think Roosevelt was the man that got things started, and I think through the years we've all took advantage of it.
That's all questions. Do you have anything?
You want to go ahead.
About all of it. You need anything else? I mean,
You fill in. If you got an interesting story, you might tell him, Bill, about one of your experiences while you were overseas.
well, I tell you, the biggest experience, if you read the Toledo paper and the Green paper, I've been putting in their history about the invasion of North Africa. Now, if no one's ever been, and I don't want to see anyone ever have to go through an invasion, because that's something when you're out there, we were on a boat, and we were going into the harbor of Algiers. It was about 400 on each boat. Excuse me. And the boat I was on got about 5 or 6 direct hits from a shore battery gun, plus they also had machine guns trained on us. And I put in the paper the other day 35 or 40, I never counted them. I don't know how many was killed. And anyway, we had to pull back out of gun range and back out in the Mediterranean far enough they couldn't. And our boat was on fire and it was sinking. And now that's what you call an experience. And I think if some little private hollered overboard, we'd all jump, because I couldn't swim. I'd have been the last one to jump. But anyway, they finally come up the side of us with another ship, and they tried to tie us together. But the sea was rough. Normally the sea don't cooperate on days like that. Normally a lot of times it's calm, but it was real rough, and we didn't have the mechanism to tie ships together, so we had to time ourselves. When the boat would go up, we timed ourselves and we jumped from one boat to the other. Now some missed and we lost them at sea, but I was one of the fortunate ones. I jumped from the old sinking ship to the other ship, and then went into on the 9th of November instead of the 8th. But they landed all up and down the coast of North Africa, and they finally surrendered, the Germans did, and went further back into the Libya and the desert. And they was, see, Rommel was coming out of the British, and Allies was driving him out of Africa when we hit there, and that's the reason they had us invade that, to kind of hurry that war over in North Africa. So that was quite an experience. And then another thing, a lot of people, you just stop and wonder, don't you ever eat? Well, we carried little cans of food on our back. You couldn't hold a flag up and say, Germans, I want to stop and eat. You just ate when you got a chance. And the bathroom, you was like an animal. You dug a little hole. Each person had a small little shovel you carried on your back, or a little pick, and you had to make a hole in the ground to eliminate, and then you covered it up, and you used your hand for toilet paper, and you wiped your hand off in the dirt. Because there was no toilet paper, you couldn't carry toilet paper, you had to carry shells and a little food and stuff like that. And I've had people, well, where was the portable potties? Well, they didn't have them back in those days. They had them, they'd blew them up, you wouldn't want to got in one. So anyway, just things like that, it's hard to believe unless you were there.
That's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Good time, thank you, Dillon.
Thanks.
Okay, but that's it.